Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the EV portion of our weekly podcast. I'm Pete Gruber,
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning, everybody.
and we have a little different format for you this morning. Our social media team is going to be joining us, Jesse, Aaron, and Cass. And they'll each have a segment that they'll be presenting. Today, what's in the news we felt was the change with Lucid. And here's a headline. Lucid CEO defends 1.75 billion capital raise following stock drop. What's here to unpack, Mark?
Well, there's actually quite a bit here to unpack. First, of course, what happened is that Lucid announced that they're going to sell an additional 262.5 million, roughly, shares of common stock. And when you sell common stock like this, what that means, of course, is you're diluting ownership. If, for example, if I own 30% of a company and that company has 1,000 shares, then I own 300 shares. If the company decides to sell another 1,000 shares, now I own 15% of the company.
Right.
So unless I want to re-up a bunch of extra money to buy 300 more shares, my ownership interest has been diluted. My chance to reap the benefits in the future of what the company can bring in profit-wise gets compromised. So investors punished Lucid for it. They were down 18% on the day that the announcement took place last Thursday. And the stock has not bounced back. It's actually now down roughly 21% in the last week. Some Wall Street analysts have even questioned the move, saying, hey, you guys raised $1.5 billion in capital in August. Why do you have to come back 2 months later to raise another $1.5 billion? And actually, it's almost $1.7 billion in capital. And it seems like fair criticism there until you kind of get under the layers, see it just a little bit more. Lucid obviously wants to have enough funding for its capital operations. That is what they announced. Kind of hidden in the announcement was that the Saudi Arabian PIF fund, they're the owners of 60% of Lucid, had a joint announcement at the same time. And their joint announcement was their intent to buy up to 375 million shares by the end of the year. So that means the PIF fund is pretty much pre-purchased all of the new common stock that's been made available. They're holding at a minimum, they're holding their ownership stake in Lucid. And that's actually a good sign for the company. Their biggest investor is all in and really wants to continue to buy in on the company. With the total value of Lucid stock declining, did a quick calculation. Even though there are 262 million more shares available, the overall market cap for the company, which is your total shares times the value of each share, actually has gone down. Last week on Wednesday, Lucid was worth roughly $7.6 billion for the shares that it had. Today, it's worth about $900 million less as a company because the shares have gone from the 330 range at their height down to as low as $202.52. I take it as a positive, though. PIF fund commitment to buy the shares is really kind of a big deal. They want to see capital operations. There's one other thing that has been buried in some of the articles that we've seen, and some articles haven't even mentioned it. And it's something called going concern. Have you heard about that before?
No, and explain that to us. You were saying something about there's a 1 year notification deadline that they had to meet, and they just met it early at this point.
That's exactly right. When a publicly traded company gets to a situation where they're not sure that they can exist for more than 12 months with the assets that they have and the liabilities and stuff, then they have to issue what's called a going concern notice. Whether it is the management of the company or whether it is the financial auditors of the company at the end of the year that issue that going concern notice, it has to be done. And a going concern notice is simply a note that says, with what we have in assets and who we owe money to and our rate of losses, we don't know if we have enough cash to last for 12 months. This fundraiser avoids that from ever happening. In spite of the criticism, Peter Rawlinson has gone on record with CNBC in defending this. He said, look, everybody knows we've been burning through cash.
Mm-hmm.
It's common knowledge that we may not have enough cash to last through the end of 2025. We don't want that going concern to be a problem. We are following the playbook, he says. We are exactly following the playbook. And he went on to say, this should be zero surprise to anybody. In fact, he said, why did I choose this moment? Because I didn't want to string it out to the end. Because I can, is essentially what he said. I didn't. Here you have a CEO of the company that's trying to do what's right for the company and the investors and be proactive about it. Lucid has been announcing and telling people, yeah, we're expecting to burn through $1 billion a quarter for the next year to year and a half because we're ramping up the Gravity. We're going to be getting started on our next car right after that, and it's going to take us a little while.
Yeah, the actual cash burn rate, by the way, that was stated by this particular article was that they were raising 1.7 billion with this latest change, which is about a year's worth of cash at the current burn rate.
Yes, so that means that their cash burn rate has actually gone down, and it makes sense. They're trying to build infrastructure. They're trying to build service centers. They're trying to put together their new model. They're trying to completely outfit their AMP-1 manufacturing facility here in Arizona. They're trying to finish the build-out of the AMP-2 facility in Saudi Arabia. So they've got a lot of capital investment that they're trying to do. But they're not doing as much research as they were doing a year ago or 2 years ago. They are also trying to they are working on research, however. They're coming up with the next generation of electric motor. They're already announcing, we're working on that. They don't have any timelines or anything, but they say it's coming and it's going to be better than this one is.
And then, of course, the Gravity, a release, which was scheduled by the end of this year and definitely into next year. So there's a lot of preparation for that as well.
There is a lot of preparation for that. They're in final testing for the Gravity. They've had it in the wintertime up in Alaska. They've had it in summertime down here in Arizona. They've had it on all kinds of different climates. They're doing final testing. They have their prototypes over at the NHTSA to do the crash tests and stuff like that. It looks like they're still on track to have the Gravity released formally by the end of this year as a 2020. I think they're going to do it as a 2025 model, but the first of them will probably roll off the assembly line before the end of the year. If they can do that, that sets an important precedent because Lucid has not been very good. Honestly, none of the EV makers seems like have been very good at holding to their timelines, at holding to their sales projections. So if Lucid can make the timeline, it's going to bode well for the company.
So it sounds like Lucid was a bit unprepared for the reaction by the market.
I think maybe so. The fact that the CEO of the company had to come out and defend the company's decisions tells me that the people in the know at Lucid thought of this as business as normal, and they did not expect that 20% plus drop over the last week in their stock price.
I think as one of the investment firms stated, Morgan Stanley, a cap raise was slightly larger and earlier than we had expected. So in the meantime, it looks like Lucid stock is within buying territory if your philosophy is buy the dips and sell the peaks.
It seems like it. I happen to own some Lucid stock, so I can't say that I'm a professional investor and on investment advice. There we have our disclaimer, Jesse. But having said that, I know that I'm one of several of the friends and family that I've known that has bought Lucid recently.
Yeah, my first reaction was, oh my God, look at the dip. Let's catch the bounce.
Yeah.
And in this case, there was no bounce. It was, as one investor said, well, dilution is dilution, no matter how you spin it.
We have a few comments, it looks like, that are coming in already.
Okay.
First on X, Captain Hype. Um, he has the Wildcat, UA Wildcats. He says, "Good afternoon, Pete."
Welcome. Yeah, thanks for joining us.
So on YouTube, Sammy Kamal is back and has joined us again. It says, "Hello, Lucid family. Keep adding on to your Lucid positions, everyone. Gravity is going to be the SUV of the year for 24, 25, and 2026."
Looks like some more comments there. Wayne Levitt is joining us from YouTube. He says Peter Rollins' wages and bonuses are shocking considering his results. There's, of course, that video that we did a couple of years ago where I went on record saying, guys, CEOs basically of these struggling companies that are in cash burn mode, let's put the all the embellishments aside until the companies are profitable. Let's sacrifice along with the shareholders,
Right.
and let's avoid these huge perks. And it was a great video. I think it was well received, but not everybody subscribes to that philosophy. And
Well,
of course, the offset to that is, how do you keep your talent? You know, there's some very talented people running these companies, and I'm sure that there are attempts to poach these people. So, in order to retain them, I think some of these these compensation packages are necessary.
they are, and you bring up a really good point. In the high-end marketplace like this, where you have your top-end talent, is a concept called golden handcuffs that often gets put on into place so that key executives and leaders of a company don't leave for competition. The golden handcuffs concept is pretty simple. I'm going to give you, say, $300 million of stock, Peter Rawlinson, and I don't know if they did this, but here's what the concept is. But that stock is not going to vest for another 10 years.
Right. So you
Or
gotta,
yeah, so if you leave the company for any reason,
Mhm.
in the next 10 years where you're leaving and we're not firing you, then you give up $300 million of stock. Those are golden handcuffs.
Right, right. Makes sense. All right, Captain Hype from X is coming in. He said, "Isn't Lucid able to draw on large cash support from their owners?"
You know, in this case, that's kind of what they did. Yes, they offered common shares. It's going to dilute ownership for people who don't go and buy more Lucid stock. But the largest owner of Lucid, the PIF fund, is the one who is buying almost all of the shares. And so basically, Lucid is raising cash from its largest investors.
And if you're curious how this dilution of wealth occurs, look at our federal government printing money like crazy. That's exactly how it happens.
It really is.
YouTube, Wayne Levitt says, "Not one Lucid car in Australia yet. It's been a while waiting to see one." That will change.
That will change, I'm sure. On Instagram, EV Smoke ATX, showing ATX EV love. He says, "Hey, I wish y'all could open a location here in Austin, Texas."
Austin, welcome. Yep. And he also says, "I would love to invest in that." Well, thank you all for joining us. Another cool picture I have here for you, and I'm going to bring that up here, is going to be Arkansas. Apparently, there was a large recent lithium, lots of lithium in Arkansas, underground, actually.
Hey, Pete, click the image on the right for me.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to maximize it so that we get the full screen.
we go.
There we go.
There we
Okay.
go.
Now, they call it white gold. Do you remember in the 60s, the Beverly Hillbillies, they call that black gold. Back
Oh,
then.
yes, I
Now
sure
they have
do.
white gold. So vast lithium reserves, up to 19 million tons, or enough to meet the projected 2030 world demand 9 times over. Now, this really sounds wonderful, but we're all expecting that battery chemistries will continue to evolve, and that energy stored in transportation will be, continue to evolve into something much more efficient instead of carrying around 1,200 pounds in your car, of DC storage. But it's cool that they found this much. What they say here that this is a relic of an ancient sea that now has been found in a vast limestone formation that stretches from a number of states, not just Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, and into Florida.
You want to zoom in on that?
Sure. Let's
In
see.
the
Here.
upper left, is that like a little map or something? The yellow thing?
This thing
You wanna
right
just
here. Yeah.
Use your mouse wheel. There
There
you
we
go.
go. Okay. Yeah, there's that formation. It's a little fuzzy, but I guess you can see it there. So, yeah, it's up to 19 million tons of lithium. And of course, this would meet all the projected demand up to 2030 for lithium car batteries 9 times over, they say. The problem now becomes how to get it out.
Right.
Usually, extracting lithium or mining lithium involves open pit drilling, creating huge evaporative pools like we see in Bolivia, brine ponds, basically, all of which can take months and years and leave a destruction in their wake. To extract lithium, they use direct lithium extraction, DLE they call it, which is where brine is pumped to the surface, and then lithium and other minerals are extracted before sending the water back underground. And of course, the concerns now are how does this affect water supply in those areas? But that is a major change because there's always been a concern that lithium may be in short supply.
There has, and we've talked in the past about lithium reserves in Nevada, the Salton Sea in Southern California, that area being incredibly rich in lithium. Now we've got Arkansas. We've talked in the past about North Carolina. It may be that the United States is becoming one of the hotspots of lithium in the entire world, yet there is so much we don't know about lithium that it's kind of like gold. You would think gold is all the gold that's ever needed to be discovered has been discovered already,
Right.
but it hasn't. Not even close.
Right.
If you remember in a podcast we had as well, the amount of lithium in our oceans might be 1,000 times the sum total of what we've discovered on land so far. Just a matter of getting it out.
And the sad part is that this may all be revealed at the end of the demand cycle, especially as we move into other chemistries or get rid of those kind of chemistries completely and go to what Jesse is a proponent of, fusion energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it looks like a couple more comments here. YouTube Mustafa El Gamal says, NIO's new semi-solid state battery is impressive. I really hope Tesla incorporates something similar in the next Model Y. Now, he says NIO's version already offers 600 miles of range and is available at their battery swap stations. I think NIO implements this technology because it's offered only for daily or weekly swap rental, allowing them to test it thoroughly before considering it as permanent.
That we've talked a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of swapping batteries like this. One of the advantages is obviously what you just what Mustafa has mentioned. NIO can always be on the cutting edge of what's going on technologically. They don't have to worry about having to maintain or support aging batteries.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Yeah. Niels is joining us from Denmark. He says, I won't predict anything about Lucid because I don't know enough. But I remember losing over $1 million on a Texas company that had the world's best product that no one wanted. Silver options are doing good, though. So there's something else that I found interesting over this last week, which was an announcement by Redwood Materials. You remember we talk about Redwood often because it's one of the industry leaders in lithium ion or EV battery recycling. And what's fascinating about that whole concept is that it's over a 90% recovery rate, and it's infinite. You can do this over and over again, rather than going out and finding new mineral reserves on the planet somewhere. You just simply keep recycling the old product, and it's reusable. Well, I was always curious what kind of an operation they have, and they announced what they're paying for used EV batteries. And here is this list. They say Tesla model batteries, they pay up to $800 per pack.
Wow.
So you take like a Model S, for example, all 1,200 pounds of lithium-ion cells that is dead or expired or no longer usable, you can get $800 from Redwood. Now, Rivian, it goes up even higher, $1,250 per pack, $1,250 per pack. And then GM models, even higher, up to $1,450 per pack. They don't say here why there's a difference in price. But we'll report on that if we get any more information at the next podcast. There's a graph that we can throw up here, and I'm going to do that for you right now. That came along with this article, actually. And this was Redwood's projection for projected EV sales annually. You can see there's a steep curve there that takes us all the way to the year 2030.
You know, and if you look at those graphs, you just kind of extrapolate it over. We're up basically to the 2025 number, which is approaching 20 million. That's not that far off.
Yeah. Good
So
point.
far, that graph looks like it's pretty close to what's really happening in the world.
Yeah. Looks like Facebook, Jake Riddle is joining us. Welcome. He says, what about Google going with micro reactors? Fascinating topic, isn't it?
Yes, that one is definitely a fascinating topic.
And then we have who's buying 3 Mile Island? Isn't that Microsoft?
Microsoft is buying 3 Mile Island, yes.
That's right. Yep. So we've got some nuclear getting into the equation as well. All right. So we have our social media team that was going to be chiming in on this podcast. Which of you three would like to go first?
Okay, I can start it off.
All right, here comes Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
You
Thank you, Aaron.
can please restart your camera.
Oh, bummer.
1 sec.
All right.
Wait for Aaron to come back
Okay.
here.
See if that works now.
There
Got
he is. All right, we're back.
All right. So recently, Tesla released the Robotaxi and the event last week. They also have been behind the scenes creating some new battery cells, 4 dry cathodes. They're called the 4680 battery cells. They should be introduced in 2026. But what's unique about these 4680 ones is they're going to be called the 4680Ds. Now, there's going to be 4 different ones, like I said. There's going to be a NC05, and NC stands for new cell. So there's going to be an NC05, which they're labeling their workhorse. And that one's you're going to see that one in a lot of the robotaxis, the Cybertrucks, the semis, and then also that new van that they just came out with. The NC20, which is going to be a more powerful one for a future SUV. So they kind of been sneaky about there's going to be an SUV coming out pretty soon. So in this NC20 is going to be powering that along with the Cybertruck and some other future vehicles, which at this time was before the event when I got a lot of this information. So I'm thinking that future vehicle is that van that they came out with. And then the other 2 are the NC30 and the NC50. And these are going to introduce silicon carbon anodes. And they're going to hold more lithium, move more freely. And they're also going to be able to improve your charging a lot quicker. Now, the biggest issue that they're having with this and why they are giving their team, their 4680 team, to the end of the year to try to figure this out is apparently with this cell, it's going to be a dry cell. So they're moving away from the wet cell. This should also eliminate cobalt too. But the problem with this new technology is they're having a hard time getting the dry material to evenly roll out. And it's actually damaging some of their machines and rollers. And they're trying to figure out how cost effectively they can get this pumped out and how they can do it in a timely manner as well. So the team has until the end of the year to figure it out. If they don't, potential layoffs? I don't know. But Elon's made it pretty known that this is going to revolutionize Tesla again, should cut the cost down, especially on the Cybertruck. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I think those, I've been saying I'm a diesel owner, and I've been saying, pretty soon it's not going to make any sense to own a gas powered truck. It's only going to be electric and diesel. And I think we're there with these new cells. Once these roll out, I think you're going to have the power. I think you're going to have the charge time up. And I think it's pretty much going to eliminate all gas powered, trucks. It's not going to make any sense to own one.
Did you, when you were looking at this, did you find out anything about what is it that makes the dry cell process cheaper than the wet cell process for manufacturing?
They're very vague on that. They say that it's the lower cost. Right now, they say it's the lower cost of the negative electroid, Tesla's dry electroid process. They say the process is a little bit cheaper, but it doesn't make any sense that it's cheaper if they can't figure out how to roll it out evenly, the dry material, how to roll it out evenly. So they're kind of vague on that. They're kind of holding, I think, the process a little bit close, because it also sounds like that once they figure this out, they're going to be dropping Panasonic and LG from any materials. It's pretty much going to be Tesla all in house. So I think they're kind of vague on how and why they're doing this a little bit.
Yeah, I think as we get more information on the dry cathode process, that'll be something that we can report. We're always interested in these new battery technologies.
Absolutely.
Looks
Thank you,
like,
Aaron.
yeah. Thank you very much, Aaron. Facebook, Raymond Gunter is joining us, and he says swapping batteries is my idea that I let loose because that is how I get my humor. Battery swap is the same as changing your batteries in a flashlight with probably a 5-minute wait time. The problem, of course, would be battery theft, which has always been a problem. With today's tech, it can probably be solved. Would this be akin to the catalytic converter theft now that takes place and is rampant with ICE vehicles?
Yes and no. With the catalytic converter, and we've experienced this firsthand here at Gruber.
Oh, very much so, yes.
You leave something parked out in the parking lot. It takes a guy can get up underneath a vehicle with a little sawzall
Yeah.
and about 5 to 10 minutes and take away your $1,000 catalytic converter. He's hidden under the car, so you can't really see him. The difference between that and the battery is that the catalytic converter weighs, depending on the model of vehicle, between 2 to 3 and about 10 pounds. Your battery is about 1,000 pounds.
Right.
So it's not quite the same because you're not going to be able to just lay under the car and remove a battery.
Yeah, they need some hydraulics. I think the most interesting experience we had was one of our janitors gets in early around 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's dark, of course. And she looked out in the parking lot and saw a guy laying underneath one of our vans. And as she looked out there, he eventually saw her and he said, "Get out of here." And she, of course, went right back in the building.
Oh, geez.
But yeah, that was a catalytic attempt at least. And I think he got spooked and he ended up leaving. But there have been other successful attempts where we've lost those catalytic converters. But you're right, that 1,000-pound pack might just pin that person for a while until the police get there.
Yeah, it's that the criminals are going to figure it out if they have a payday coming.
Yeah.
But at this point, there is not a good payday.
Well, Cass, you had something for us as well.
I do. As a lot of people know, I like my motorcycles, so I did some research on Kawasaki in particular because I have a Kawasaki, so I wanted to start there. Kawasaki has a Ninja HV, which is their hybrid, and then they also have their Kawasaki Ninja EV, which is their electric bike. The top speed of the hybrid is about 104 miles per hour or 167 kilometers per hour. Their EV is 55 miles an hour, 88 kilometers per hour. So the hybrid is obviously has an electric drivetrain and a gas-powered engine, and that one sits at about 451 cc's, while the EV sits at about it's all electric, so it doesn't really have a cc to it, but it's compared to a 125 cc bike. So they're pit bikes. So like a Z25 or a Honda Grom, which sits around
Wait,
that same area.
it only goes 55?
It does.
Oh,
But it looks like a full bike. I have a picture in there if you wanted to pull it
yeah,
up.
I'll pull up the pictures.
But it looks like a full bike, but it only goes 55 miles an hour, which I find really interesting because it's a big sports bike. And it has like an eco boost to it as well. And so does the hybrid.
Okay, there we go. Oh, that's your bike.
That's my bike. That's my ZX6R
Oh,
or
okay.
ZX4R.
And what's the top speed
That's
on
my
that, Cass?
ZX4R.
Yeah.
My ZX4R top speed is on the track and tuned 130.
130. Okay. All right.
On the track, I've done it 120.
Okay.
Oof.
That's the Honda Grom.
Oh, that's the Grom.
Oh.
So it's a little pit bike. It's a little tiny bike. It's kind
Okay.
of like the Ice Bear that used to sit out front.
It reminds me of the little Yamaha YX80 mini bikes that I used to ride growing up.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, yeah, that one's the EV. So it looks like a big sports bike. It looks like it would go about as fast as my bike. The takeoff on the EV is pretty equal to the takeoff of a ZX10R. And the ZX10R, I don't have a picture of that one, but the ZX10R is a 998cc bike. On the track, it goes 180 miles an hour.
Oof.
Boy, that does look deceptively slow. 55 miles an hour.
55 miles an hour.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's even got the ninja emblem on the side, so it's intimidating at the red lights.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this is.
That is the battery for the EV. So you
Removable
can
battery.
pull the battery out. It's got two of them inside of it. You can pull the battery out and charge it at home, or you could plug it in. It's got a little port to plug in as well. Right there.
This is one of those that when you think about the battery technology improving
Mhm.
vastly, makes you wonder that, we've talked about the biggest detriment to having a battery on a bike is the fact you can't have much battery on a bike.
Right.
But if some of these, whether it's solid state or semi-solid state or the silicone cathodes, which could allow 10 times the range and power to be stored in a battery, any of these things happen, this is one area I could see being a real revolution.
So the EV for the Kawasaki, the range on it is 41 miles or 3 hours-ish, give or take, per battery. And it's got two batteries in there.
Now, this is the HEV.
Yeah, that's the hybrid. And the hybrid actually has a 3.7 gallon tank. And if it's strictly in EV mode, it only has 5 to 10 mile range.
Amazing.
But that one also has a eco boost as well, which kind of gives it a little extra oomph to it. That is the Kawasaki 125. So that is their pit bike version. So that one is the Honda Grom of Kawasaki.
So these EV sport bikes most likely will not appeal to the performance-oriented motorcycle driver.
Not yet, at
Mhm.
least with Kawasaki. Kawasaki is still obviously working on theirs. Harley Davidson has one. I don't have any stats on that one yet because I wanted to stick with Kawasaki. And then while I was going through the other EVs, there are a couple other companies. Energetica is a full EV bike company, and they have a whole bunch of different types of bikes. They've got your adventure bikes, which are your road and off-road bikes. They have sports bikes, and they also have kind of a cruiser, a slower-esque bike, so it's not as like fast and, using air quotes, scary as a big sports bike.
Sure.
And then there is also Can-Am, which has a whole bunch of them. They have a dual sports bike, and then there is Zero Motorcycle, which has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different models, all EVs. So I can do stats on that for next time too.
So one other thing I find interesting is we always talk about the tipping point in ICE vehicle versus EVs. is what is the cost of one of these EV bikes compared to one of the ICE bikes at this point?
So the EV bike for Kawasaki runs you just as much as a Ninja 500. Ninja 500's got more oomph to it. It is an ice bike. And then the hybrid, I believe, runs you the same amount as a ZX4R or a ZX6R. Hold on, I'm going to double check that real quick. Motorcycles, Z.
So it sounds like the same problem in bikes is what is existing in the automotive world, where you end up with a little bit less performance,
Yeah.
a little bit less speed, and the same cost.
Yeah, so the E1, so their ZE1, which is their electric bike, the MSRP on that is 7.5. And then the hybrid is a little over 12K, which, if you put that into perspective, their Z900RS, which is their more cruiser-esque retro sport bike, sits at 12,600 MSRP, and that one is a 900cc bike.
It'll be interesting to watch the as this changes, as adoption rates increase with motorcycles.
Yeah.
You know, like Jim Farley was saying in an interview just 2 days ago, that EV costs are about 40% less than ICE vehicles in terms of parts that go into the vehicle. If the same is true with these motorcycles, eventually as volume increases, we should be able to see a delta or a change between cost. And hopefully adoption rates on these EV motorcycles will improve as hopefully performance improves. You know?
I'm hoping so. You know, it's going to be an interesting thing to see. The current leader of Toyota was not wrong when he said we're putting at risk potentially millions of jobs of people who build all these ICE engines because you're building a piece of equipment that has roughly 100 times fewer parts and far less maintenance. So there's going to be a lot less demand or a lot less need for people with these job skills.
Yeah. Well, Jesse, you have something for us as well.
Yeah, well, the other thing too is about the motorcycle stuff real quick. For every other show, Cass will be bringing us stuff on the motorcycle topics, and not only just pricing and stuff like that. We're going to go into their features too, because they have new features that are being added, like auto balancing, some forms of automation, that kind of stuff. So we're going to do segments on how that tech evolves, and we'll keep people updated on that.
Yeah, they actually, now that you say that, the EV and the AGV, they don't have clutches. There's no clutch.
It's just twist and go like a scooter.
It's just the throttle. The AGV has shifters because it has the strict ICE engine, right? And then it has the electric drivetrain. So it has the capacity to go and you be able to switch between 1 through 6. If you're just an EV, if you just have it as EV, it goes 1 through 4. So it instead of your typical ICE engine being 1, neutral, 2 through 6, it's neutral 1 through 6, neutral 1 through 4, which is really weird. And on an ICE engine where you have a clutch and you shift, rev matching is something that's really popular because it's less burnout on your clutch, and it uses engine braking to kind of slow the vehicle down. I don't know if you'll be able to do that on an AGV because there's no clutch, there's no, with the timing of rev matching, there's no way to do it. So what happens with their, and I'm using air quotes, clutch, what happens with that engine? You know, what kind of wear and tear happens at that point? Right.
Well, we'll continue to report. This whole motorcycle topic is fairly interesting to me. The questions I have: is it a 3-phase AC induction motor Does it have an inverter? It would have to have. Does it? Is that how it achieves regen braking? And like in cars, EV cars, there's no gearing, so you're limited to the RPMs of the motor. So higher speed motors, higher RPM motors are definitely going to be necessary if you're trying to get the top speed up in these vehicles. And of course, you go to lighter, construction instead of steel. You start using carbon fiber, so you can get those RPMs up. Looks like we've got a number of people chiming in.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to read the first one?
Yeah. YouTube Niels is with us and saying maybe Tesla should just let their robotaxi be Aptera. It looks superior in material, design, and comfort. I don't disagree with them there.
Is the Aptera a single-seater or a two-seater, though? I don't remember off the top of my head. I know Solo is a single-seater.
Solo single. I think Aptera is a two-seater.
Two-seater. Okay, so that would work.
I think it would work, yeah.
Yeah, very cool. By the way, speaking of Aptera, we took a cue from them. We have a golf cart that we use for Gruber commercial properties that they zip around in. And, they're always, it's always low on charge because people forget to plug it in at night, and the next morning they can't use it. Anyway, we came across some solar cells a few weeks ago. Turns out they happen to be 37-volt solar cells, which is 36 volts in the golf cart.
Right.
So this weekend, we mounted a solar cell on our golf cart, and it works perfectly. So we have a sustainable energy golf cart now.
That's fantastic. Do the guys, so it didn't matter that the guys haven't plugged it in Monday night or over the weekend. It just was charged.
Precisely. In fact, it has too much of a charge because we live in Phoenix. So it's constantly putting 9 amps into this 36 DC battery plant. What's also funny is we've got some golf cart manufacturers around us that test drive up and down the street, and I can see the solar envy when they see our golf cart, even though ours is a 1970s golf cart and they have brand new ones.
Oh, that's funny.
YouTube, Captain Hype says, dry process, less lead time, more scalable, I guess. Talking again about the dry cathode batteries that Tesla is working on in the new 4680 Evolution.
I had heard about the wet cell batteries having to have a drying time that's somewhat energy intensive because you're having to blow air over it and evaporate the liquid. So yeah, that makes sense.
YouTube, Niels is saying that it looks like Edison Motors is designing a small truck hybrid kit that works similar to their large truck build. Maybe hybrid makes sense for smaller diesels.
We need to look into that further.
Yeah.
I love the Edison Motors story.
Yeah. Those guys are having fun up there, no doubt about it. Niels is also saying catalytic converters and EGR are apparently not needed with speed of air pistons, available for Harleys and Indians too. And then also says Energica is bankrupt. That's something that Cass was talking about.
Yes.
And then Ron_GPT, who is buying the catalytic converters? They need to be arrested. In Phoenix, as you're driving around, especially South Phoenix, occasionally you'll see a pickup truck that's got a load of what appears to be mufflers in the bed.
Yeah.
And I always wonder, are those the catalytic converters that people are missing?
I wonder about that. I've heard news stories here in Phoenix too, where police open up a storage unit, 8 foot by 10 foot or 8 foot by 20 foot storage unit, only to find that the storage unit is stacked half full or 3/4 full of nothing but catalytic converters.
Amazing. Yeah. By the way, the arrow that you see behind me is not to draw attention to me, and I'm going to move out of the way here. There we go. See that minus 20.91%? That is the Lucid, which we spoke about earlier, stock drop, just with this last couple of weeks or so. Year to date, Lucid is actually down 22%. So looks like it's within buying territory to me.
It is. It's just looked it up a moment ago. It's up to 262 right now. The fun thing, if you want to call it that, is that these stocks usually go up or down a penny at a time, and going up, a few cents. Like here today, it's up 7 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a 2.5% stock increase in one day.
Right. All right. Jesse, is there anything else you wanted to add, or are we going to wrap up this podcast?
We're good. Wrap it up.
Okay. So tomorrow, Wednesday at 10 a.m., we have our AI podcast, which started off as an impromptu. Jesse and I would come in Sunday mornings with some coffee and maybe smoke a cigar later on. And it has really blossomed into one of our most successful podcasts. If you're interested in new technology, all things related AI, the latest advancements, this is where we chase down rabbit holes and we discuss what is coming down the pike. And the whole goal of the AI podcast is to minimize the fear surrounding it and to help people adapt and adopt and embrace. It's gonna happen whether we fight it or not. So you might as well learn to to make it your friend. And we at the Gruber companies absolutely do that. Our technicians over at Gruber Motor Company use AI to troubleshoot the Tesla vehicles, especially the Tesla Roadster. Our call centers, the people that are in customer service, they use it to assist with, emails, communication, written communication. It is definitely a useful tool. And tomorrow we're going to be talking about some of the latest advancements. And it seems like every week there's some major breakthroughs in capabilities with AI. So join us, 10 o'clock Wednesday mornings. And then next week, after this podcast at 10 o'clock, we will again have our Roadster podcast. We've been doing those every couple of weeks now. And if there's something breaking, we'll do them every week again. But at this point, it's every 2 weeks. So next week, we'll have our Tesla Roadster podcast at 11 o'clock Tuesday mornings. I'm Pete Gruber. Thanks for joining us.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Take care.